smoke is quieting down. Seems like we've got to a lot of the smoke. Dub, you got smoke?
On Patreon episode titled Lenny Lion, tensions flared between Melyssa Ford and her co-host, sparking a revealing conversation about the dynamics within the Joe Budden podcast. Melyssa was called out by QueenzFlip and Ish for behaviors that were deemed hypocritical, demeaning, and manipulative. Let's break this down and analyze the heated moments as well as the larger implications for the podcast as a whole. The conflict began during a debate about bravado, led by Ish. While Ish was speaking, Melyssa made a dismissive sound with her mouth, something QueenzFlip immediately picked up on and called out. It immediately got spicy. Ish pointed out that Melyssa often uses these kinds of behaviors, labeling her a bully and accusing her of deploying manipulative tactics to control conversations. Look at the files.
Funny part was this the funny part.
Oh shit, this nigga.
That's why I get mad at Mela. Like that shit she be doing. I be watching it, that shit, and hearing it. That shit pisses me off.
What?
You didn't hear that? No, that's just.
I did not. That's not what I did.
Nah, but then when you jump on her,
I did not do that. But that's not what I did.
She gonna talk and she gonna go to spaces and be like, "Yo, they was beating on me. Yo, come help me and save me." Mel, I'm starting to watch the pods now. I see your faces when niggas speak. See, I told you, man. You do that. You are a bully, my nigga. You low-key a bully.
Here we...
You are low-key a bully. That shit hurt our feelings, man.
How am I a bully?
You low-key a bully.
So wait, can I ask a question without you screaming at me?
Here we go.
Can I ask a question without you screaming at me?
I'm screaming at you. She asked it twice.
We have had a discussion up here and everybody has talked about performance, have they not? So at what point am I allowed to say and own that that is part of my performance? Huh? At what point am I allowed? At what point can
That's
I
like
be
a wild
given?
card.
Huh?
That's like a wild card. It's not a reverse.
My facial expressions are my fucking thing. Before I even got here, it's been my thing. Stop being pussy about it and just fucking deal. Like, it's part of my performance. If you don't like it, then I will make sure to mute my face every time you speak.
You've asked me to stop. You've asked niggas, you see your flip. That shit.
Flip, yes, I have asked you to stop.
And then you do it.
But it was well... Is the line between potting and performance and being your real self, like, it's a very fucking fine line that we all have to, like, balance on.
Respond, Ish, because you have a...
Mel's fronting.
Woo! It's lit on the pod. Lit. So Melyssa played the victim. You heard what she said. Can I ask a question without you screaming at me? Now, Ish countered that immediately, telling Mel that she was being a professional victim, that she always uses this when she wants to avoid taking accountability, right? And we all know that. Melyssa defended herself, claiming that her facial expressions and sounds are now part of her performance, and that is BS. And however, right, QueenzFlip wasn't buying it either. He boldly called her out, telling Mel that she makes those expressions when she thinks someone is stupid or when she finds their comments unworthy of serious attention. According to Flip, this behavior can come off demeaning to others on the podcast. Now, what added fuel to the fire was Melyssa's reaction after this confrontation. Behind the scenes, she called QueenzFlip outside of work, asking him to stop making faces and funny remarks during the podcast. Come on now. Now, Flip respected her request and refrained from doing so. However, Melyssa reportedly continued to exhibit the same behaviors toward everybody else on the pod. Now, that's crazy, right? Like, how you going to do that, Mel? Now, when Flip finally addressed this on the podcast, Melyssa doubled down once again, entering what we all know as the professional victim mode. Ice chimed in, attempting to defuse the situation, and he noted that similar behaviors have been directed towards Mel by others on the podcast as well. Now, this acknowledgement seemed to empower Melyssa. It put some fire on her butt, you feel me? But instead of owning up to her own actions, she subtly shifted back into what Ish described as her bully persona, right? And now she does use that, like, you know what I mean, that woman, tactic, and it could be bullyish, for real, for real. Now, Melyssa shared how she feels like her comments are often dismissed or treated as jokes by the group. She expressed frustration, saying that when her co-hosts disagree with her, it feels as though they are telling her to shut up or be quiet. Now, this victim rant, however, didn't land very well. Mel told everyone, "My facial expressions are part of my performance, and you all need to stop being pussies about it and deal with it. If it bothers you that much, I'll mute my face when you speak." But this statement wasn't an admission of accountability. Instead, it felt like a defensive tactic to shut down criticism and avoid engaging in a deeper conversation. By doing so, Mel dodged responsibility for the behaviors that the group had repeatedly called out. QueenzFlip took the opportunity to highlight the underlying tension within the group. He pointed out that while everyone has their own quirks, Melyssa has a tendency to play the victim and use her woman card to sidestep accountability. He further emphasized that the problem isn't her facial expressions or sounds in isolation, it's the double standard. Flip explained that when Melyssa asked the co-host to stop certain behaviors, they respected her request. However, when it comes to her own actions, she refuses to stop and justifies them as part of her performance. Come on, Mel, it's nasty. Now, Flip's ability to analyze these dynamics and break down the cast's individual issues was a standout moment in this episode. He even suggested that some co-hosts might, benefit from therapy to address these recurring conflicts. Now, I got some questions. Is Melyssa Ford being unfairly criticized, or is there merit to her co-host accusations? Think about whether her reactions are part of a natural dynamic or if they cross the line into manipulation. And do you think Melyssa's professional victim mode is intentional, or is it a defense mechanism? Are her behaviors deliberate strategies to avoid accountability, or do they come from a place of feeling misunderstood by her peers? And should co-hosts on the Joe Budden podcast hold each other to the same standards of accountability? Is it fair for Melyssa to expect her co-hosts to change their behaviors while refusing to address her own? And do you think QueenzFlip is right in calling out these dynamics, or should he focus on his own performance? Flip's ability to dissect group behavior is impressive, but does it come at the expense of his own contributions to the show? And how do you feel about the idea of using humor, expressions, and sounds as a part of a podcast performance? Is this a valid excuse for behaviors that might be perceived as disrespectful, or is it a cop-out to avoid accountability? Now, the Joe Biden podcast thrives on its raw, unfiltered conversations, but moments like these expose the fragility of the dynamic, right? Melyssa Ford's ability to balance wit and insight has been a strength on the show, but this episode reveals how even the sharpest minds can fall into defensive patterns when confronted. So what do you think? Is this just another day in the podcast world, or does it speak to a larger issue within the group's chemistry? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Follow me on Twitter at The Files with Dub, and let's get to it. And we'll be back with The Files.
My guy Dub, too. That's my man, though.
Gang, gang.
That's my man, Big Dub.